Welcome to Syntax. Today we have a really good one. We're going to be talking with Cassie Evans, who is a developer education over at GSAP. So that means we're going to be diving into all about GSAP, what it is, where it's at, why you should be paying attention to it, and just generally why it's so cool. So Cassie, welcome to Syntax. How are you?
Hey, yeah, I'm really good. I'm very excited to be on Syntax.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here. We've been chatting for a while, just in general, but also GSAP, man, is one of those things that like really feels like it's been a large gap for me in my knowledge base. And so I'm really excited to be able to just really understand more. I think it's a really exciting time to be talking to you about this, given some news that just happened. And in general, I think it's really cool. So yeah, I'm very, very excited. Wes, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I think maybe we should go real quick into like what is GSAP for maybe anyone who hasn't used GSAP before or maybe might not know what it is. So you want to give a stab at what that is, and then we'll go into the announcements and shortly after that.
Yeah, sure. So GSAP is a very powerful animation library that you can use to animate pretty much anything. So HTML elements or SVG or UI stuff, 3D things, pretty much anything that JavaScript can touch. And it's been around for, like 15 years now.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
for the people that have been around since the Flash days, they'll remember GSAP as an ActionScript library. So it's kind of been like at the forefront of web animation for a really long time now.
Man, and GSAP just had like a major kind of rebranding as well, which was, I think, great, because for the longest time it was like like superhero man, and it was extremely popular. But I think a lot of people kind of wrote it off as like that kind of whole vibe. Lost it, and the new design looks amazing. Were you part of that?
Yeah, that was on my hit list as soon as I started working at GSAP. One of the things about Jack, the library author, is that he's very averse to change, which when you are maintaining a library that's used on like 12 million websites, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. But I think, the branding did need an overhaul. I think it had a little bit of nostalgia for the Flash era for people that were around, but like the Gen Z youth, they didn't get the nostalgia. They were just like, why is there this green man with a superhero cape?
So is GSAP, because I remember this as Green Sock. Is Green Sock and GSAP the same thing, just a rebranded kind of way of referring to it?
So yeah, Green Sock is the company name,
Gotcha.
and GSAP is the library. So GSAP stands for Green Sock Animation Platform, but we kind of found that people were using GSAP and Green Sock interchangeably, so it was just kind of easier to just lean into the GSAP side.
That makes so much sense. I always thought the animation library was Green Sock, and I hate to say this, but its name turned me off from like using it. I was just like, Green Sock? I don't know, think about green socks. GSAP, though, the branding on it rules. It looks great. The landing page looks great. It all feels super modern. The whole thing is just great looking. So it seems so dumb to say that, but I do feel like I'm way more inclined to pick this up based on its like current iteration of its aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I actually, before I learned GSAP, I started with Anime.js, like way, way, way back in the day. And that was entirely because I was new and they had the jazzier site. And then I kind of hit up against some walls and realized that GSAP had a bit more power to it. But yeah, visuals, first impressions, they're important.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Your own website, personally, is that using GSAP as well? Because it's one of those websites that has like whimsy on it.
This is, I feel like my website is due for an overhaul. I'm too busy helping everyone else make nice websites. It looks awesome. So it's very Cassie's circa of a few years ago, I think. But yeah, using GSAP everywhere on there.
That's good. So is GSAP, it basically it's JavaScript library for doing animations and scrolling things in and architecting. Pretty much, if you ever land on a website that is extremely interactive and has like beautiful animations, there's a high probability it's using GSAP. Are those animations using what? Is it using CSS? Is it using the web animations library? What's going on under the hood?
It's just JavaScript. So sets like inline transforms on DOM elements, but it's kind of animating objects. So yeah, if you're using it for, objects in 3JS or something, it's just kind of directly manipulating the properties.
Let's get into the actual announcement, because you've got like a little sneaky thing to tell us.
Yeah, so it's super exciting. We've just announced that we're making GSAP entirely free for everyone, which is possibly a strange thing to say about an animation library because people are used to libraries being free. But the reason that GSAP has managed to stick around for as long as it has is because we had some club plugins, like some little bonus extra animation goodies that we put behind a membership subscription. And that kind of gave us a funding mechanism to carry on with development and community support and making demos and stuff. And yeah, all of that is free now. So
amazing.
Very exciting.
And that's because GSAP was bought by Webflow, right?
Yes. Yeah, it is. So we've kind of been nestled up inside a big corporate, and they've been able to lift the paywalls for us, which is really
that's awesome.
Yeah, really nice.
It's wild to me that like you don't necessarily have to talk about Webflow. I don't want to put you on the spot there. I'm just saying like talking about Webflow as like a big company, man. I remember back when Webflow was just several people, and cranking on, and they've built such a cool platform. Some of the websites that like look the best or have like the best interaction are often on Webflow. We did this little video when was that, Scott? Maybe a couple months ago, where we're trying to guess.
I watched that one.
The tech stack behind it. You're like, is this Squarespace or is this Webflow? And it's kind of funny how you can just like almost smell what a website has been coded on based on like the interaction behind it.
I had a really similar thing where so I do a lot of things at GSAP. One of the little side projects that I have is I kind of post my favorite sites and add them to the GSAP Showcase. Cool. And when people submit a showcase, I ask what tech stack they're using. And I started getting loads and loads of Webflow sites. It was probably like about a year and a half ago. Before then, it was all like, React, Astro, Svelte, whatever, 11T. And then all of a sudden, just loads of Webflow sites. And there was a little bit of me that, as a developer, I was like, no, that's a website builder. Like, surely not. But we saw more and more of them. And I think what was happening was Webflow was kind of being used to make the design process faster and easier. And because the design process was faster and easier and people could build out a site quicker, they had more space in the budget for the extras. So like really talented creative developers who write GSAP animations in code were being brought on to kind of add a bit of polish.
Speaking of this showcase, we'll have a link to the showcase in the show notes. But man, if you want to get a good idea for like what GSAP is capable of, this showcase is just a phenomenal place to do that. I'm just like watching these things and just feeling like just inspired because there's so many crazy animated designs on here that look so good. Man, what is it about GSAP users that allow them to build this kind of stuff? Holy cow.
Yeah, it's a really fun library. Like I actually learned how to code through GSAP. When I was first learning JavaScript, I didn't really connect with a lot of the tutorials online. I'm sure you've had a similar kind of experience where it was like, fizzbuzz and logging out stuff to the console and array methods and stuff. And I was like, why? I don't understand the real world. Like, what is this doing? This is just wiggling some numbers around. And then, I discovered GSAP and like building fun kind of creative coding, generative art stuff. That was kind of how I really got my head into JavaScript.
Yeah, I love that stuff as well. Like if you want to learn something, you have to pick up something that is really exciting to you, right? And I'm the same way as well, to a point where I ban the use of FizzBuzz or Foobar Baz from all of my tutorials, because it's certainly a lot of people enjoy that. They love being able to just single it out and look at what Foobar Baz is. But for a lot of other people, they want to have delightful stuff. They want to be able to make something that's exciting. They want to be able to show people what it is they're doing, and not just like showing 99 balls of beer on the wall. So that's really important.
Yeah, you've both done like a really great job of that in the past as well, teaching people with like building fun things.
Yeah,
I think that's what GSAP is for me, is so many people, they start learning GSAP and it gives them this it's the reason that we used to have the superhero guy as the logo, because it does feel like it gives you superpowers. You can suddenly do anything, and it's a really friendly API. And when you get that flexibility, you can just kind of build anything that you can dream up.
And if you want to see all of the errors in your application, you'll want to check out Sentry at sentry.io/syntax. You don't want a production application out there that, well, you have no visibility into in case something is blowing up and you might not even know it. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Again, we've been using this tool for a long time and it totally rules. All right. So what is it about GSAP that makes it easier to animate with than, let's say, like other animation libraries? There's so many out there. Like, what makes GSAP special, I guess? What is the secret sauce?
So, yeah, I think I wouldn't say GSAP is easier to animate with than other animation libraries. There's like some very specialized animation libraries that are good for particular frameworks and for doing particular things. But what you get with GSAP is, just a lot of flexibility and robustness. So because it's been around for a really, really long time, Jack's kind of seen what animators wanted to do from back in the Flash days on what they were struggling with, and he's kind of built the tools around that. I always say, I'm obviously very biased, but I redid all of the GSAP docs. I've been using GSAP for years and years and years, and every time I build something really challenging, I will inevitably run into like a wall or a problem space, and I'll check the docs and there'll be something there for that problem space.
Just been around for so long.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
One like area is that this works entirely with SVG as well, right? Like if you want to, it's one thing to animate a div around and make a div drag and drop and add some easing to that. But a lot of these like extremely complex UIs, they're pretty heavy on SVG, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, that's the most exciting bit for me about the GSAP being free announcement is the fact that all of the SVG plugins, the previously paid ones, are now open for everyone. I absolutely love SVG. So we've got stuff that helps you morph SVGs, draw lines in all kind of different directions, animate along motion paths, edit motion paths in the browser, all sorts of stuff.
What is it about SVG that some people just get really deep into it? Because it's not an easy thing to learn, right? It's almost its own like area where people specialize in it, and they have like layering, and there's all these different like, I forget what it is. Like I remember I got really into like different types of blur in SVG, and like I don't know. Can you speak to that? Why do you love it?
It's like having a little Photoshop / vector editor in the browser. Yeah, I think for me, I came into coding from a design background. So when I was trying to do a little career swap, there were just lots of things that I didn't quite get at the beginning. And it was actually SVG and GSAP together that I was like, oh, it's just vectors in the browser and like paths, and I can animate them. And I was used to kind of design programs and animation programs, so it was just that, but on the web, which was fun.
Yeah, it's so funny. I came from more of like a Photoshop background, so I was like slicing up raster images and just like whatever I can do to throw an image background on whatever. And I never got into vector until I got into web stuff or more SVGs. I can see how that would absolutely lead to that. One thing I noticed about GSAP sites is that they're often like very smooth.
Yeah.
Is there something special about it that makes it performant, or is it just like you said, like the history of optimizing? Like it really does feel like anytime I hit a GSAP site, they are distinctly smoother.
I think a lot of what people feel about smoothness is easing. So there's still, you can get yourself into tricky spots when you're animating, whether you're using GSAP or any animation library, if you animate the wrong things, for example. So I think the sites that use GSAP that are very, very smooth, they're doing a lot of transforms and opacity, like the safe kind of hardware accelerated animations. GSAP is very performant under the hood though. As well. But yeah, you can still get yourself into problem spaces if you're like, I'm going to animate filters all over my website, or I'm going to animate box shadows everywhere.
We're going to have new elements show up, animate on, and
Are there any like gotchas that you should look out for, just in general, things that can kind of be expensive, that can cause the frame rate to drop?
Yeah, so I think the top ones would be animating the wrong properties. And by wrong properties, like my top wrong properties would be like filters and box shadows. Filters are horrendous for animation. I think you sometimes see people doing tricks with box shadows where they have, rather than animating the properties of the box shadow itself, they kind of animate the opacity of a box shadow and a pseudo element and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good to animate where you can transforms and opacity. Those are like the safe zippy ones. And then also like think about what's happening with your animations when they're off screen. Make sure that you're kind of killing things, reverting things, pausing things, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
I had the craziest slowdown issue with the site I was building, where there's just like a massive grid of squares, and when you click on them, the square changes the background. And I was animating the background color just from transparent to color, and the frame rate on the site was crazy bad. And I was just thinking, like, this is so weird. And then sure enough, I just did it with a after pseudo selector and animated the opacity, and all of those issues went away. So definitely important to know those things. If it can get you into some odd trouble sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, I think as well, like choosing the right tool for the job, because there's differences between HTML DOM elements and SVG elements and Canvas as well. So if you're doing something really, really jazzy, going the kind of Canvas shaders route is probably the best. And then if you are animating, you shouldn't animate too many SVG elements. That's kind of another rule. DOM elements are a little bit more performant.
Oh, interesting. And GSAP works with Canvas as well then? So there's things you can render to it. How does that work? Is it like the whole API works also in Canvas, or it's like basically when you're deciding when you want to build something, do you decide should this be DOM elements, SVG, or Canvas?
Yeah, when you're building something. So GSAP doesn't do any rendering. It's just kind of the tool that whizzes stuff around after you've put them on the screen somehow. So what you put on the screen is up to you, whether you're like rendering a 3JS object or whether you're using an SVG or DOM elements.
Oh yeah, it's just doing the math of figuring out how often, how frequent, how much. It should move it around.
Yeah, just kind of wiggling the numbers around behind the scenes.
Oh yeah. And what's some of the most, like, I don't know, do you have any stories or any crazy stuff that has been built with GSAP that you just love pointing to?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's so many things in the GSAP Showcase. Website wise, I always really like it when I see big companies using GSAP, like Adidas uses GSAP a lot. I don't know, am I allowed to say names? Big companies. Some big companies use GSAP.
Yeah, that's always the thing. We're like, are we allowed
you
to
can
do
bleep
that?
Bleep them.
Yes.
But yeah, there's I really like it when people make games with GSAP. That's always really fun. There's also I've seen GSAP being used in hardware as well. So I think there was like a car vehicle UI that had GSAP under the hood.
Oh, yeah,
which is quite interesting.
I love looking through the Cars software license in their UI stuff. I had to turn down a job to do that at GM. It was actually really like I would have taken the job. Was it GM? Yeah, I think it was GM. It was a good job, but then I was working at Ford at the time, and they matched the job offer. So I was like, okay, well, I guess since I laid that down, I can't go build car UIs. But it was with JavaScript and HTML, so all that stuff is in your car. It's in your UIs. It's all over the place. Does GSAP play nice with web frameworks? I think that might be a bit of a concern for some people who are only like, oh, I use React this or that to do all of my animations.
Yeah, so you can use GSAP anywhere, but React is historically a little bit trickier. People were struggling a little bit, so we came out with a hook, the use GSAP hook. So you can import the hook, and then under the hood, that kind of handles all of the animation cleanup for you. It's basically an effect that handles animation cleanup and scoping and like a few other little helpful things. It's a different way to approach animations from a lot of React people are used to declarative and just kind of popping stuff on your JSX. But imperative animation gives you a lot more control. So it's kind of there for if someone, that's what people use effects for, isn't it? To kind of jump outside the paradigm and do the fun things. So it's there if people want it.
I just was looking on the website, and sure enough, there's a video of you talking use GSAP hook. So yeah,
I hate that my face is in all the thumbnails. I got suckered into having to put my face on the thumbnails for the algorithm.
For the algorithm, I know. When we started learning more about the YouTube algorithm, it's like, all right, we have to do this, we have to do that, and it's like, oh, he resisted for so long, but it really does make
it gives me a jump scare every time I look through the docs, and I spend half of my life in the docs tweaking things, and then just my face.
That's our videos show up on like our TV when like my kids are flipping around or I'm trying to watch something, and then it's just like boom, huge Scott and me. I'm like, whoa. Was not expecting that,
Internet famous.
Yes. Have you been keeping up with all that's been going on with CSS in the last, I don't know, year and a half or everything that's been going on there?
Has anyone managed to keep up with all that's been happening with CSS?
Have you been trying?
Yes. Right before this.
Trying.
Right before this, we recorded an episode that was like, here are some things that flew under the radar that are now like in all of the browsers. And I think half the stuff I didn't know about, and we've done episodes like this several times before, but it was just like, Shape exists, or this exists, like Zoom. Yeah, it's crazy.
I haven't heard of those ones. I feel like we got tricked because for so many years, I would remember going to conferences and they'd announce a new CSS thing, and everyone would get hyped, and then they'd be like, but you can't use it yet.
Yeah, totally.
And then you'd have to wait for a few years. Whereas what's happened now is there's just with Interop, everything is just hitting so much faster.
It's great. Yeah,
it's really good. I'm really excited, but I'm curious if there are any specific parts of that you are excited about, either for animations or just like building beautiful things on the web in general.
I think animation-wise, scroll timeline's very exciting. So I mean, I'm a GSAP gal, but before I started working for GSAP, I was working for a company called Clear Left, and we were like very, very focused in on performance and like browser standards and that kind of thing. So for the event sites, we could kind of go crazy and use GSAP and make like silly nonsense, but there were a lot of design systems that we were building out where we weren't using external libraries. We were just kind of trying to use what was available on the web. So yeah, that sort of thing. It's really nice to be able to have like a CSS alternative.
Yeah, totally. And do you think any of these things will ever like make its way into GSAP? I'm thinking about like starting style or allowed discrete, view transitions, things like that.
View
where
transitions is a thing that I'm very excited about. And yeah, I think we've kind of looked at that to try and see whether it's something that we could utilize in GSAP. Also, like Web Animations API is exciting as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that we're kind of quietly looking at on the side. Starting style is also, that's an exciting one.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think that stuff would be like probably the way that it would be integrated is like the API wouldn't change that much, but if there was a like a performance benefit or something that could be done under the hood, maybe that type of thing could be eked in. We talked to was it Nate from Motion?
Oh, Matt Perry.
Matt Perry. Why did I think it was Nate?
I really I like the hybrid approach that he's taken for Motion.
Yeah, it's an exciting time when I'm sure that GSAP has influenced a lot of these APIs as well, you know, where you look at them and go, oh, that's kind of nice. I think I would like that in the browser natively as well. But sometimes you hit these like, it does X, Y, and Z, but I'm sure you've seen that a lot as well, where it's like, it doesn't entirely cover every single little use case. Whereas like GSAP is, like you said, the API is extremely robust and you can do literally anything you want with it.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is I have in the past chosen to do things in CSS and then the projects got more complicated and I've ended up having to refactor things. But you know, it's all about choosing the right tool for the job at the end of the day, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah. I was looking at GSAP. I saw a lot of people saying that like timelines were like a killer feature or something, that the reason why they moved to GSAP. Can you give me a little bit of like, what is a timeline and why would that be considered a killer feature?
So yeah, timelines are sequenced animations. So it's something that is a bit tricky in CSS. Like keyframe blocks don't have understanding of other keyframe blocks. So if you've got, you know, two animations and you want them to run one after another, you have to add a delay to another one. So GSAP's got timelines. I think a lot of animation libraries have got timelines now, but GSAP's timelines, we've got a position parameter. So you can basically position animations anywhere in relation to any other animations, or you can put a label at a certain time and you can hang them off that label, and you can fire callbacks pretty much anywhere to run custom logic. You can nest timelines inside other timelines.
Ooh, I like that.
You can control timelines with control methods like play or pause, or speed them up, or play them in reverse at twice the speed. You can also, this is really fun. So because GSAP is all just animating objects and timelines are objects, you can actually animate the time of a timeline.
Oh, yeah.
So
wow.
It's pretty meta, but that means that you can kind of create an animation that does a whole bunch of things, and then you can just tween the progress of that.
Wow, that's amazing.
There's a GSAP developer, Tom Miller, who's just written an article on codrops, and I think he might cover that, making carousels where you can kind of click the next or previous button and it tweens a time scale of like an overall animation.
Oh,
yes.
So you mean what you mean is like you can scrub an animation? Is that what you're trying to?
Yeah.
Say? So yeah, like you have like a 10-second animation, but you could scrub it to 5 seconds if you want to go in the middle.
Yeah, you can do that, but you can also just do that with like an animation, or you could seek to a certain point in a timeline and then play it from that point. So yeah, just lots of control, basically.
Man, there's so many cool demos here. I'll link to this article here so that you can check this out.
I'd love to see what you're looking at. I can just see your face like getting really into things.
I'm just scrolling I know. That's actually been a lot of this episode for me, is just going to these demos or the showcase and just being like, oh, I'm so interested in this. Okay, cool.
I can't wait to see what you make, Scott.
Yeah, well, we'll see if it's any good.
And when you're timelining out like an animation? Like, let's say, for example, you wanted to like timeline out like a bike riding for a little bit and then it jumping in the air and spinning around. Is it a good idea to like put each of those steps as like seconds, or like what do you normally use as like an increment for something if that value should be variable?
So I think that's why the position parameter is good for like positioning bits of an animation. One approach that I would do when I was doing really complex SVG animations was to create a timeline for each part of the animation. So if there were, if it was a guy cycling, it might be like the wheels going as one part and like maybe the entrance animation as one part. Then I don't know if his tire explodes, that's another part. So you do separate bits and then you can kind of just sequence them one after another. And position parameters, you can do absolute times at seconds, like you were saying, or you can do kind of relative to other previous animations, which is usually a bit more flexible.
I see. So like when something, like I assume you could also probably like react to something as well. Like when this animation hits a specific thing, like when it hits running into a rock, then start the next animation.
Yeah.
And what do you use to like visualize these? Is there any tooling around that?
That's a really good question. So I don't at the moment. It's just kind of all in my head. And most people that, are code people, once you start learning GSAP, you can kind of go straight from your head into making the things because you don't have to deal with UI. It's the same as writing code. You just think of the thing and then it happens. We've got some dev tools. So you can kind of hook up like a little timeline scrubber to your timeline and you can play through it and pause and like loop sections and stuff like that. They were a Club GSAP plugin and they're free now. So if you want to use that, that's free. But
this is so enticing, all of the free stuff.
Yeah. The reason that we were acquired is to help them with the new iteration of their interactions. So at some point, there will be a visual like builder for GSAP.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. You gotta love this style of acquisition. Feels so much like the syntax one because we were given complete freedom and we're just there to to help out, and we're still like it's not acquired to get shut down. It's acquired to be enhanced or whatever, and you gotta love that. This is so cool. I love all this stuff. I'm just like playing around with the scrubbable in the plugin where you can just grab a timeline and scrub it. All of this reminds me so much of After Effects in a way where that's like a big part of my background is in After Effects. And I came from like really having a firm understanding of composable animations. Like you said, you animate just the wheel and then you compose that, you add it, and so like this right now is speaking to me so much in that way of being able to take animations, to take timelines, compose them, to add them to other ones, to build these complex things. And it really makes me understand why people like this so much. It's really pretty cool.
It's so much fun. I think, like, as you were saying that, it made me think that the thing that really got me about animating on the web was it was familiar, like you say, like After Effects. But the thing that you have on the web that you don't have in After Effects is interactivity. So you've got that like interaction with your users rather than just giving them a video and being like, look, it's a pretty animation, here you go. You can give them something that they can click with and play with and interact with. I made a little confetti cannon on the release page for the old pricing page, which is now just the hooray, it's free page. Where I definitely should have been doing documentation and other work, but I was like, I'm going to make a confetti cannon. Important priorities. But just that sort of thing, it gives someone just a couple of seconds of their day that they'll stop and smile at something. And I just really love that.
It makes so much sense too that this comes out of the action script era of anything, because anybody who comes from that era knows that the Flash websites that we used back in the day were so much more animated, but like they were more like interface animation design in a way that was like so missing from the web today. And I gotta love that this seems to fill some of that space. There's a lot of like plugins for this, of which formerly many of them cost money or whatever. Is there any plugins specifically that are your favorites, and anything that you are really like, ooh, this is the plugin that I use the most?
So I think the one that I'll give a little shout out to is split text, mostly just because that's had a complete from the ground rewrite. So that's like half the file size, and also has built-in accessibility by default, which is long overdue, and masking, and also handles splitting up really complicated text sequences. So like compound emojis and Devanagari and Chinese characters and all of that sort of thing. My favorite one would be any of the physicsy plugins. So Physics 2D is loads of fun. I think that's my favorite at the moment, just because I just made a confetti cannon and had loads of fun playing with like velocity and all of that sort of thing.
Oh, and split text. The reason you have that is because you often want to animate individual words and or characters, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
quite a common animation challenge. It can also be kind of overused in certain use cases. But I do really like a little kind of like button animation or a fun like hero intro.
Same.
Man, I wrote a little function called Sparan wrap for one of my conference talks, where I wrapped every word and every character in a span. And it's a lot harder than you think, because like you said, like you can split based on a space, but that's not always the case. And you can split based on nothing, but like emojis that have zero width joiners, right? There's some APIs in the browser for that, but then also like word wrapping is a huge pain in the butt. If you want to wrap spaces, it's a whole nother thing as well, because a span with a space in it is not necessarily the same thing as text with a space in it. It's just a nightmare all the way down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like, this should be easy. And
did you run into responsive line issues as well? I don't know if you ran into that one.
I believe I did, because I was also trying to like use it with text wrap balance.
But that's brutal. That still doesn't work. Split text has not solved that one.
No.
It's just very much don't split your text and try and balance it at the same time.
What a wild world. But once you do have like elements around every single letter or character, you can then do things like animate the text in, or like you could do it as you're scrolling in, you could bring the letters in. Just really fun stuff you can do with it.
I'm looking at this Physics 2D demos right now. So to just give the audience some perspective there, it basically just allows you very simple physics, no collision or anything like that. But like the demo here that you have on the docs is like, it is kind of like confetti. It's like a cannon shooting out all these dots. This is the only time I've ever seen like a confetti demo that you can scrub in reverse and like play back and forth like that. I think that is such a killer feature for some of this, and like being able to like have that tool that you can physically press play and scrub along the timeline for. This to me, like, it feels so like the developer experience is so well thought out. And even the documentation, you said you spend a lot of time in the docs. Like, what's the philosophy at GSAP about the documentation? Because it seems really, really robust and solid.
Yeah, the docs are great. I think we try and keep the docs like you're being talked to by like a friendly professor. So it's got to be very human and friendly, and have examples and demos and ways to kind of just jump in and get started. It's a good place to learn GSAP. I think a lot of people do ask, like, how do I get started? with learning GSAP. And the docs are wonderful. There's just so much information in there and so many little demos that you can like fork and play with.
Yeah, all of the demos have a fork button on them. So if you want to take any of these and actually experiment with it, you click the fork button. Every documentation should have that, because it's not just like, here's some code you can copy and paste, but here's something you can actually try, which, man, should be there in every docs, for real.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about what Scott just said about being able to scrub through an animation. And you know where that is actually extremely useful? Be able to set a timeline at any given millisecond is in Remotion. So Remotion is...
Oh, I've seen Remotion.
Yeah, it's basically like React. You can make like videos with React. Yeah, and you can sort of do them out. But the way that it works is that they literally spin up... They need to take a screenshot of every single frame.
Yeah.
And then the way they can do it quickly is that they'll spin up like 100 different, like let's say you have 1 second and you want to split that into 60 frames. They could spin up 60 different processes. Each of those 60 processes scrubs to its own millisecond and then takes a screenshot, and then it comes back with those 60 frames and puts it back into a video. And part of the problem, I think CSS might be getting this, but part of the problem is that you can't tell CSS like go to 50% of the way through a transition, which is it can be an issue when you want to have like fine grained control over where something is.
Yeah, that's I've seen Remotion before. It looks like a really cool tool. There's I forget what it's called, GSAP Video Export. Friend of the library, he made a like a video export for GSAP. So it's just you run a command in the terminal and you give it like a URL, and it will go to the page or the code pen and grab the timeline and then scrub through it and use MPEG to kind of chop it up into images and then puts it all back together again. So
I'm gonna use that for sure.
It's so good. For all of my my GSAP videos that I do, I probably should use like a video animation software for it, but I animate stuff with GSAP, and then I'll just make
your motion
a video
graphics are built with JavaScript. That's amazing.
Yeah. Mine should be. I tell you what, I try to do so much dumb tech stuff with DaVinci Resolve, and it's just like it can't do anything. Takes so long. Oh my God. To do slicing of each and animating each individual character in the way that I could do with this, it would take me just a mammoth amount of effort in DaVinci. And sometimes I'm always like, why is it like this? Why can't they be about, maybe I'm just should be using JavaScript
just
instead.
Use JavaScript.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many streamers as well, like speaking of fun things that people use JavaScript for, like the things on Twitch, like all the reaction emojis and the overlays and stuff like that, people use GSAP heavily in those things.
Oh.
Because it's all web tech, isn't it? You just got browser, like you make your overlays in the browser and then hook it up in
like OBS.
That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah. CJ did a little video on how he did that as well. So he did one of these videos where he programmatically created all of the motion graphics, and it was basically just like numbers 1 through 30, and they were programmatically cut out, and then they were kind of wiggling, and then he exported those to video as well. And I often think like that's such a good way to do this type of stuff, especially when it's on demand, right? Like with OBS, as soon as someone does something, you need to be able to play it and overlay. It's not something you can make ahead of time.
Yeah. There's a big broadcaster in the UK whose name I won't say because I'm not trying to get into trouble, but they use web technology and GSAP for all of their like what are they called, custom thirds.
Yeah,
they are that go over the news and over sports programs and all of that sort of thing.
I bet that's more common than we actually think, because I know that a long time ago I knew that the NFL, way past Flash's time, but like maybe this was 7 or 8 years ago, but the NFL was still using Flash to programmatically make those like transitions. You know, they'll slide up the team icon, and the score will get really big. And those were all generated in Flash at the time. I bet that some of those are now done. Like, why not? I bet you just told us, I don't bet it. I know it. You just told us. So
I went to the dentist ages ago to get my teeth straightened. And they had like a 3D thing of my teeth that was spinning around, and I was just lying there with all the things in my mouth going like, what is this built with?
Right, exactly.
What's this? And had a whole chat with the dentist about how it used to be Flash, and then they had to update all of their like 3D modeling software stuff at some point, because obviously Flash was no more. He didn't know what it was actually using, but I was like, I wonder whether it's like 3JS and GSAP.
Yeah, I'm always curious about that as well, because like this new tech, the like JavaScript and web tech being used in unconventional non-website is very interesting to me. And I had the same thing. I have my tooth model that they 3D printed over on the shelf over there. And they show it, they bring it up on the piece of software. Or like the dentist will also do, when they measure your gums and tell you need to floss more, they now do that voice to text. It used to be like they had somebody sitting there entering the info and the other person would, but now it's all just like voice to text. And I often sit there while they're measuring my gums being like, I could build this in like 3 hours.
I'm glad that wasn't a unique experience that I had. And we both had like nerdy web tech moments at the dentist.
No, at one time at a conference, Scott and I are at 2 a.m. at a McDonald's trying to figure out what the McDonald's self-ordering screens are built on, and apparently it's Silverlight, which blew my mind.
Yeah, not something you've heard of in a long time.
Yeah.
Didn't Netflix use Silverlight at one point? Like when it
long time ago,
oh my God, yeah. Long time ago.
I'm out of the loop. I don't know what Silverlight is.
Oh man, it was like a Microsoft owned it, right, Wes? I think it was a Microsoft's implement, like their version of Flash. And it was sort of like it came out right at that era, like as the iPhone was killing Flash, and it was like, all right, now we got it. You had to download a Silverlight thing and install it, and it was just like, why would anybody pick this over Flash at this point, or soon to be HTML5?
Is why they did it.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Those were the dark days, like post Flash, before the other things came along.
Yeah, I know. I remember
like we're
that.
kind of in like post Flash, like utopian era at the moment there. It feels like we've kind of got all the good things that we had back then, but with a little bit more knowledge about like performance and accessibility and how to treat people that are using your websites and stuff.
Now let's bring back the Flash aesthetic then. Let's bring back the Flash interactivity
for everyone.
Yes, exactly. We need more, not screw whimsy. We need just like full immersive like video game intro to websites. So I have a question about that, not about video games, but about the web in general. Is there anything missing that you would absolutely love to have in web tech, whether it's CSS, SVG, JavaScript?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would really love for my brain to comprehend shaders better.
Oh, me too. Holy cow! Yeah,
that's not something that they need to like add to the platform. But I mean, I've been so excited about shaders for a while now, and I keep trying, but it's so low level.
It's crazy.
Shaders for stupid people? Is that? Can they add that?
I was working on a shaders course.
Please.
I was working on a shaders course, and I am too stupid for it. It was like, it is crazy that like you have to think about every pixel all at once, and like that is such a weird transformation in thinking that like. I was building some very basic stuff, and then you get into like slightly more advanced things, and I would just look at it and be like, why does this work? Like, I don't understand how this works or why this works.
Yeah. Have you gone on Shader Toy and like given yourself the doom?
Oh yeah.
You scroll through there and you see some of these things that people have built with shaders that are just full on real life replications of a river or something.
Yeah. And then they show you like it's 200 lines of JavaScript. Like, how did you do that?
Magic.
Yeah.
Magic.
It's a wild world.
I did a little shader, like online course workshop thing. My partner is very, very clever and does audio programming and C++. But our dynamic is he's the music one and I'm the visual one. And that's where we're comfortable. But he came and sat next to me and was just making shaders because apparently his brain can comprehend that. They looked horrible. It looked like psychedelic vomit, but he was still managing it better than me.
Yeah. That's so funny.
I actually was writing one, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, because I'm very into that whole what's that aesthetic where it's kind of like noisy
glitchy
drop shadows.
Noisy
drop shadows, you know? And the way I replicated it was I found some WebGL code that had a custom shader, and it replicated that. And then I could use like a blend mode on my elements to sort of make it look like that. And I was just trying to like change the values to make it a little bit more grungy. But I found that like AI is very good at explaining how these things work, and it made it a little bit more approachable for an idiot like me.
Yeah, that is a good thing. The AI can.
What about AI and GSAP? Is AI good at writing any GSAP stuff?
It's AI. It does some things very confidently incorrectly. It also does some things really well. I think it's been really interesting watching a new cohort of developers kind of using it as a way to learn and like an entry point into learning. And I've seen some really positive things, like some people kind of getting to grips with stuff quicker because of AI. I've also seen people drop into our forums after they've been battling a challenge with AI for days, and they've got reams of code that doesn't make any sense. And that just makes me want to cry, because I'm like, if you just dropped into the forums like 2 days ago, we would have helped you with this. It would have taken 10 minutes. You just, So I think there's
show up with a box of garbage code. What do I do? And it's like, I don't know. Like, that's awful. No one should have written that. No one did.
And I'll spend a while looking at the code trying to work out what this person was trying to do. And then you realize that it is just nonsense, that AI has hallucinated. You have to kind of go back to what the original problem was.
Wow. This has been super amazing. You know, I went from being kind of clueless about GSAP to feeling like this is all I want to use for animating right now, especially like it speaks to me. So thank you so much, Cassie. I think this was really super illuminating.
Having me on.
We've been trying to get you on for a long time, so it feels long overdue, and really appreciate you taking the time. Now's the part of the show where we get into sick picks and shameless plugs. Sick pick, something that you're just enjoying right now. Shameless plug, something you want to plug. Do you have a sick pick and a shameless plug?
I do. So my sick pick would be a little, I don't have it. I tried to find it and I had lost it somewhere in the house. But it's a little orange box that allows you to do video synthesis. It's called an IZ from Critter and Guitari.
Video synthesis.
And what is video synthesis?
So this is kind of what I do in my spare time. So my partner does audio programming, and we've got a big projector in our lounge, and he makes little noises on his synthesizer, and then I can pipe the noises through my video synthesis machine. So it accepts MIDI in, and then you've got little buttons and stuff, and you can press the buttons and twiddle the knobs, and you get weird colors and patterns and things. And you can also program presets for it. So you can program in Python or open frameworks. And it just makes, I guess, fancy versions of old Windows. Like
like a screensaver.
And it works with MIDI, so you can connect to Ableton, like you said. Man, this is cool. Did you ever get into Max MSP and Jitter?
Yeah,
I feel like that's something
I've
you'd
been
love.
using Jitter recently. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get super into Max MSP, the whole like nodules node
Yeah.
thing.
That's
Not
how I
not
learned
my
how to
vibe.
program. Yeah, is through Max
But
MSP. That was my first programming language.
yeah.
This reminds me so much of that in a way. So cool.
Oh man, this is like Winamp audio visualizer vibes as
Oh, it's
It's
well.
so
so
much
cool.
fun.
Have you ever like DJ'd a conference or anything?
I've been pondering it. I think I drunkenly said to
Yes.
Mark from Beyond Tellerrand that I should do some visuals for him at a conference. If you're listening, Mark.
Yes, do this. Oh my God. I love this. Cool. Hell yeah. And shameless plugs. What would you like to plug?
Shameless plugs. I mean, I guess the main shameless plug is like GSAP is all free. All of it is free. Go and play with the things, make ridiculous stuff. And yeah, I guess another thing that I could plug is that we're running a community challenge for the next month with Webflow. So we're going to have a prompt each week to make something fun using GSAP. You can either use Webflow and GSAP or CodePen and GSAP. And then we're giving away merch and stuff. So if you listen to this and you're like, I want to have a play around with these things, then play around with the things and then maybe win some merch.
Amazing.
Oh,
Cool.
Is there
I wanna
any
do that.
any of the OG superhero with the green sock merch kicking around? That stuff's gonna be worth.
I've got some in my wardrobe, but yeah, we should bring him back out of retirement for a little bit.
Yes. I love it.
I'm doing a workshop in September at Smashing Conf in Freiburg as well. So if you want to hang out in person and like move some things around, then yeah, come along.
Oh man, Smashing
Awesome.
Conf is excellent. One of the best like web dev conferences ever. So I'll vouch for that. If you are in Europe or you want to travel to Europe, certainly check that out.
What's your dog's name again?
This is Brody.
Yes, Brody. Okay, Brody's a frequent character in your videos, and I'm so happy that Brody is making an appearance in this episode. It is Brody's dinner
He's
time.
like, give me my dinner.
Yes, we will let you get to feeding Brody. I'm sure he's very, very hungry. So thank you so much, Cassie. This has been unreal.
Awesome.
You're amazing. Happy to chat with you, and hope
Thanks
to
for
have
having
you
me
on again
on.
someday. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Bye, folks.
Peace.